that the health system was really in dire straits. At some stage, the Defence Force had to go in there, especially in Mahikeng Hospital, to work there, doctors, nurses. So that was an area that had to be attended to. The distribution of medicines and drugs and all the pharmaceutical things that hospitals and clinics need. As you recall, the depot, there was a problem at the depot, so staff wasn't moving out into the hospitals and clinics. That has been resolved. We now are at 80% availability at any one time of all the medicines. Right. We also had to look at issues of maintenance because some of the hospitals were not working because the boilers were not working. As you know, the boilers in a hospital are very important because they produce the power in the hospital for steaming, for cleaning, for doing all that. So we had to ensure that boiler makers are working. The theaters were not working at some stage in Mahikeng. 4 out of the 5 are now perfectly working. We are working on the last one. A lot of service providers in the health were not paid. So receipts were there, but they were not paid. Took us some time because of the strike. We couldn't get hold of the receipts, but once the strike was over, we were able to pay. We are now at more than 80% of payments, close to R1 billion that we have now sorted out. And we are also filling the posts that were vacant, that were essential. So there is a lot of work that is happening. But as I say, a lot more still needs to be done. If we look at education, there were areas where education was in dire straits. Kids were not going to school. And interesting enough, and I would like to appeal to communities, the schools were closed, kids were not allowed to go to school, but it was not about education, it was about other issues. Some of them, it was issues of succession, of makosi, khosi, and then they stopped kids going to school and all that. So we'll really like to appeal that kids must be allowed to go to school, even if there are disputes in a community. They must not affect the kids. But we've been able to assist where there were problems. Kids have been taken to places where they can at least be able to learn and to write their exams. But we still need to work a lot more with communities so that they understand that education is so important for children. Whatever the problems, kids must not be used, or schools must not be the center of a dispute that is not affecting education. So, but of course, we also have looked at what are the critical posts that need to be filled in education so that the kids do not suffer. In municipalities, again, the municipalities, I think, were the worst affected if we really look at what was going on there. We've been able to do a lot. I mean, we took the Defence Force, for instance, to go to one municipality where there was just sewage all over, water issues. It was really a mess. And they were able to fix that. But we also, the Department of COPTA brought engineers who then went from municipality to municipality, at least making sure that leaking sewer pipes were repaired, best water pipes were repaired. So that work is going on, but they've repaired hundreds of sewer pipes, of best pipes, water, and also maintenance of street lights, because that was also a problem in some of the municipalities. So there is a lot of service delivery work that has happened, but because many municipalities were in problems, there's still a lot more that has to be done. And the scholar transport is being sorted because there was a point where there was difficulty for kids to go to school who needed scholar transport. So that matter has been resolved. We're just now discussing finally whether it must remain in transport or whether it must go to education, but at least kids are going to school. And some of the roads also have been repaired, but there are lots of roads that are in disrepair. There are lots of roads that need tarring. So, but one of the most important things also that we have done, or we are doing, is to create systems. As if you look at the Auditor General's report, it's frightening. So we have to make sure that there are good financial systems, that procurement is done properly, and there are systems that can be followed even when we are gone, so that it's not just what we do when we are there, but what remains, so that there's some sustainability in what actually remains. We have also looked at corruption issues. We have about 46 cases that have been handed over to the police, which are now at various stages of investigation. I think some of them may be going to the court roll and so on. So we have handed those to the police. Where we found that officials already, there is some evidence of problems. Some of them have been suspended, but the police are really investigating those areas where huge amounts of state funds were not used properly, were used in a corrupt way. Some of the contracts that were done irregularly have been cancelled, some of them, and new ones are being put in place. So there is a lot of work that has been done. Yeah. But as I say, more needs to be done.
If you've just joined us, well, then welcome to it. This is our special broadcast, and it's coming to you from our offices here in the GCIS, Government Communication and Information System in Pretoria, in Hatfield. And we're joined in the studio by the chairperson of the IMTT that was responsible to oversee some of the things that were happening in the Northwest and to bring about intervention, really. And Minister Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma is giving us an update on that. Minister, if we go along, perhaps when you went to the Northwest, or the team arrived in the Northwest, how were you received there?
That is, of course, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. They're giving
by all stakeholders. But in the end, we had to then focus now on the administration itself, with the MECs, the officials, parliamentarians, heads of department. I think we have sufficient cooperation from them, because what we must remember is that the administrators that we have appointed to work in the Northwest and the technical team and ourselves cannot be the ones that do the work. We have to work with the officials that are there, influence them, make sure there are systems that they follow and do the right thing, oversee what they do, and make sure that we live, as I said, sustainable systems. So cooperation is very important, because if we don't get cooperation, we can't do. We've only got a few administrators who are working there. We also have our responsibilities nationally and we use part of the time to do work in the Northwest. So it's very important that the officials who are there do the right thing, and we begin to change the culture so that we live a culture that will continue with good governance.
Minister, now that you've touched on issues of administrators, perhaps let's go there. One may ask, are you confident really that the team of administrators were impartial and not biased throughout the whole process?
Well, yes, I am, because we did not only rely on the administrators actually were appointed after we had met almost all the stakeholders actually, including the administration itself. And we had identified all the things that were not correct. And then administrators were sent. But initially, it was the heads of departments and so on. I think they are not partial, really, because it doesn't help to be partial, because we need results. So we have to do things that need to be done to produce the results that are needed. Yeah, I would say they are not partial. Right. Yes.
The main complaints during the first intervention were mainly on labor. Have their concerns been addressed, and how far have you brought perhaps the feedback?
Well, as you would recall, some of the issues were around, as you say, unions, labor, but sometimes some of them were just issues that also related to structures that were not complete. So that's why we had to bring the Department of Public Administration to come and work with them to complete the structures so that there are proper organograms, and then posts can be filled. There were also complaints about corruption. As I said, we have identified at least 46 of those that are with the police now. There were complaints about sometimes the structure of the buildings where the offices are. So Public Works is working closely together with Department of Labor to ensure that the landlords do, the problems are identified. Where the landlords are not ourselves as government, they correct what needs to be corrected. So Public Works is leading us on that, and they are working on it. So some of the things are not things that can be fixed overnight, but clearly there also has been lack of proper maintenance. Because also in the municipalities there is aging infrastructure, and that's why you get so many bursts, leaks, and all those things. And so we also need to come up at a national level, and provinces and municipalities, what is the structure and what is the plan for maintaining and replacing some of the infrastructure. So I think we are addressing them, but I wouldn't say they are completely addressed, because some of them will be short term, some of them will be medium term.
Practical actions, Minister, that have taken place as far as the restoration of governance in the Northwest is concerned?
Well, as I said, we are putting systems in place. We are completing the organograms and structures that were not complete. We are putting procurement systems. We are correcting the contracts that were wrongly done. So all the things that we are doing in one way or another have to do with governance. Yeah, and using state resources in the correct way. That is going to be take time to show, because as you know, the Auditor General, even when we leave, will still be auditing probably the previous year, that things that happened before we came. but we are doing our best to restore governance there.
If you've just joined us, well, welcome to it. We're coming to you live from our studios here at the GCIS, that's Government Communication and Information System in Pretoria in Hatfield. And joining us in the studio is the chairperson of the IMTT on the Northwest Province, and this is Minister Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. Minister, I think at this point in time, let's shift our focus. Let's talk about social grants. I think it was one topic that a lot of people spoke about this year. Maybe let's go into there and take a bit of time and explore that. We've got just over 10.6 grant beneficiaries in the country. 7.3 of those have migrated already to the post office. We've got about 3 million of those that have migrated to their own banking structures. 370,000 of those are pending, Minister. Let's talk about that.
Well, I think that they're a bit more than that, but those that needed to be sorted out, migrated and all that, yes, the figures are correct. What was important, one, was that the court, when I came in, the court had just said we have 6 months to sort out everything.
Right.
And that meant that sorting everything to a point where we can close the contract with CPS.
Right.
And if we didn't do that, it would have meant we are in contempt of court, or we have to go to court again and ask for the extension. And we took a decision that if it means working 24/7, we have to do it, because we can't keep going to the court. And we can't have a department that's overseen by the court, by Parliament, by everybody. We needed to move out of that space. So I must also congratulate the officials. We pushed them very hard, and they worked very hard to ensure that we don't go back to the courts come end of September. And indeed, come end of September, we did not go back to the courts to ask for an extension. We went back to the court with our final report of what had happened and where we were. And as you recall, that some of the beneficiaries decided to open bank accounts to go and bank with to get their money from the banks. There are about 3 million of those. And then there were about 7 million that needed to be moved from the CPS card now to a post office and SASA card. And that's the migration that we also had to do. And I'm happy to say that we have migrated them, except the 370,000 that are still outstanding for migration. But the CPS contract is out. We are now back to normal. Not the courts are out. They are not unhappy now about the CPS contract, because you remember it was the CPS contract that caused all this. So the ones that are still remaining, they have up to, because in January we would really want everyone to be migrated. But I think you must remember that 98% of all beneficiaries have been migrated. It's only 2% left. And it's that 2% that we're appealing to go and do their swab so that we can close this chapter completely. But we have closed the chapter of CPS. We have migrated 98%. We're left with 2%. And the ball is really in their court, but we appeal to them to really go and swap, and so that everything will be smooth as from next year.
Minister, finally, reports are flooding in, road fatalities. We've heard a couple in the last couple of months, Limpopo being the highest. We've just heard recently the Northwest, 11 people were killed in a crash over this weekend. Any message that you have for holiday makers? Anything that you have to say to them?
Well, this is a very sad state of affairs in South Africa, because this time should be a happy time for everyone. People should be going back to their families. They should be enjoying time and quality time with their families, participating in festivities, and not really arranging for funerals and mourning. So we would really like everyone to be alive. Why can't we really behave like we did in 2010 during the World Cup? But it means that as people journey to their destinations, they must take care. If they are tired, they must rest, the drivers. They must not drink and drive. They must not speed. They are going on holiday. Just take it easy so that you can reach where you are going. And of course, observe the road rules, because I was listening the other day and they were saying most of the fatalities are, at least on the roads, the majority are because people overtake wrongly. Right. People must be patient, overtake when it's clear they can according to the rules and what they see, and not rush. They'll get there and they'll get to the festivities, but if you speed too much, then you get to a different place that you didn't mean to get to. You didn't mean to go to heaven or somewhere. You end up there, and your families, your children, just think of them and drive safely and arrive alive and see you again next year.
So there you have it. That's coming from the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. That's the Minister, Minister Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, who's also the chairperson of the IMTT, giving us an update on what's happening in the Northwest, as well as touching a little bit on the SASA issues. And hopefully you've heard that. Would like everybody to migrate just before January. In fact, the 28th of December is the deadline for migration. Minister, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully see you again in 2019, and have a good one yourself.
Thank you very much, and we thank the people of the Northwest for their patience. It's not easy, but we also thank them for their cooperation, their patience, and we hope we can do our best to get them to a place where they can be happy.
All right. That's where we're going to have to leave it for today. From myself, Karabalans, from the GCI's radio team, ciao for now.
Thank you all. Have a good festive season.
Thank you.
And we want to see you alive back here, all of you. Okay. You're welcome. We'll see you next year. Inshallah. Inshallah. God willing. Thank you.
I'm so happy we went to that corner. Yeah. It would have happened. Yeah. Because I went to look on the TV. Because luckily you could just see me too. So besides, we didn't know. I didn't know. We quickly had to do damage control. Otherwise, in-house interview. They were even saying, hey, you know what? She's saying, and there's a voice, and no one knows whose voice is that. But it's fine.